Hi, I'm Dr. Tim Eberhart, Assistant Professor of Theology and Ecology at Garrett-Evangelical and the Director of our Master of Arts in Public Ministry degree, a 2-year program designed for those called to various forms of ministry in and for the sake of our common life together in various public spheres. And so I very much appreciate this opportunity to reflect on meanings of public theology and on expressions of public ministry in this time of the COVID-19 pandemic. This being Holy Week, at least for we Christians in the West, I'm reflecting these days on the passion stories in the Gospels leading up to Jesus' death. And it's striking to me, rereading the accounts of those events, just how many interconnected systems, actors, and motivations are bound up in the complex plot that culminates in crucifixion. The violent reign of imperial powers, narrow political calculations, conspiratorial charges of religious blasphemy, the selling out of human life for the sake of financial profit, an irrational and unjust mob mentality that rewards criminal behavior and punishes the innocent. Betrayal, such painful betrayal among the most intimate of friends. And throughout it all, the agonizing clarity of one who walks the path of righteousness in spite of the costs. One of the core approaches woven through the public ministry curriculum at Garrett is a commitment to interpreting the major trends and dynamics impacting public life today through multiple critical lenses, with a particular bias toward perspectives aimed at realizing justice and well-being for those made poor, the exploited, and the oppressed. In particular, that includes taking up criticisms of capitalist exploitation that degrades human and more than human life. It means engaging criticisms of white supremacist violence, heteropatriarchal oppression, ageism, classism, and more. In this sense, one central task for public ministers today is to be intelligent interpreters of the COVID-19 pandemic from multiple intersecting perspectives. So, at the very least, that would mean understanding how unyielding industrial growth, in this case through corporate factory farming driven solely by the profit motive, is decimating healthy ecosystems worldwide, leading to the collapse of species diversity, but also to the increasing emergence of new coronaviruses like COVID-19. In the context of the United States, it would mean calling out racist attacks against Asian Americans. It would mean seeing just how foolish and cruel it is for a society to leave tens of millions medically uninsured and underinsured. It would mean recognizing that it is the working poor, especially women, and especially black and brown workers who simply cannot afford to shelter in place and who are thus the most vulnerable to sickness and to death. And it would mean naming the reality that hyper-individualistic, hyper-masculine, and hyper-libertarian responses to a global pandemic are recklessly threatening us all. Of course, so much more can and ought to be said, but the point is to emphasize just how important it is as public ministers to be able to identify and examine the interconnected systems, actors, and motivations bound up in this complex plot that we are living day by day, and that is culminating in so many crucifixions. Now, the events of Holy Week do not end on the cross. But we need to be very careful and very clear that news of the resurrection of the righteous one does not cancel out his death, as if it never happened. The proclamation is that God's power for life is stronger than death. In fact, the witness of the New Testament affirms a very hard gospel at just this point, that it is only in and through the dying out of that which leads to death, that the coming to life of a whole new creation is possible. And so this is the prayer that I will end with, that all those called to ministry today, congregational ministry, pastoral care and counseling ministry, ordained and lay ministry, ministries of racial and economic justice, child advocacy, and ecological regeneration, and more, that all those called will see clearly just what is being revealed amidst these difficult days. But even more, that we will discover God's leading us to follow the narrow paths of the righteous one, together in deep solidarity with whatever gifts we've been given by the Spirit, in faith, in assurance, and in hope that a new world, a life-sustaining and just world for all, is indeed possible. That is my prayer. May it be so. Amen.